Okay, buckle up, folks. This is likely going to be quite a long video. So, in this video, I want to have a closer look at the Sunday night, the night following Maddie's birthday party, because there's so much wrong with that I just really wanted to come back and take a look directly at that and figure out what might be the actual truth in the situation. I felt that for this particular video, I was going to need to look at more than just Jenn's statements. So I think I've ended up using way more clips than what I would usually use, because I've also looked at what Stefan has said about the Sunday night, and sorry, we have to listen to him. I've also looked at comments from the flatmate and also something that was said in the 911 call, the original 911 call. And I will just apologise. I've been told that in fact it's not Stephanie making the 911 call, but it's actually Jenn's stepsister, I believe, called Letitia. I haven't got verification on that myself because, to be honest, I haven't dug into Jenn's family that much because they are on the periphery, and I think they've suffered enough without me having to worry, well, without strangers like me digging into their family and putting their business online. So it could be Letitia, it could be Stephanie. I suspect that, given the fact that I've never even heard of Letitia, that I'm probably the one who is uneducated here. Anyway, that's irrelevant. So I'll be looking at clips from those people, plus a few excerpts from documents at the end. And between all that, hopefully we can figure out what the true story is about the Sunday night. My personal opinion is that when it comes to the Sunday night, Jenn's living in her own little fantasy world, and I'll explain that as we go along. So brace yourselves, because we're going to start with Stefan, get him out of the way first.
Tell me about Sunday night. Tell me about Sunday into Monday. What you remember?
She just had a party. She was excited. Sorry.
It's okay.
Just talking about crushes. Her singing that was coming up, and he wanted me to come see her sing. Nothing bad. She was just happy. She was very happy. Everyone was happy. There's nothing out of the ordinary. I can't remember anything particular that happened. I showed her the movie Sister Act.
Ah, okay.
She was singing so well, I told her she reminded me of the choir. When they got their stuff together and started singing better, I wanted to show her.
Gotcha. So Sunday night, how do you decide, like, who's going to get her ready for school in the morning and everything?
I take her to school in the morning so she can sleep in as much as possible.
Okay.
I agreed.
So, according to Stefan, Maddie was excited after her party. Also, she wanted to sing for him, apparently, which made him decide to show her Sister Act, which they then watched together. Then the detective asked him about the arrangements for the morning, and he said, well, we'd arranged it so that Jenn could sleep as late as possible. Now, there's things missing from this narrative from Stefan. There's a lot missing when you look at Jenn's narrative. In fact, Jenn doesn't even get a mention from Stefan. The only time Jenn comes up is when the detective questions him about the arrangements for the morning. Stefan doesn't say when those arrangements were made, but he doesn't talk about them all sitting in Jenn's bedroom having their little kumbaya moment. According to him, what happened Sunday night was she sang for him, they watched Sister Act. He doesn't talk about Jenn coming home. He doesn't talk about them hanging out together in Jenn's bedroom. He doesn't talk about Jenn choosing to send them upstairs together. None of this, well, it loosely matches Jenn's narrative. We know that at one point she brings up the Sister Act part of the story, but she only does it once. She's a bit vague on it, and then she drops it again at a later date. But there's certainly nothing said here about them sitting and talking about Maddie's party and looking at presents and counting money, yada yada yada. It's all about Stefan and Maddie. Jenn's not included. Now, that's not to say that Jenn wasn't part of that part of the evening, because I think we can agree that for Stefan, his main focus was Maddie. But it is very interesting that at this point in time, their narratives, they don't corroborate each other's stories, basically.
And so Jennifer shared with me, typically you normally sleep in the upstairs guest bedroom.
Yeah.
And then she will sleep together in her own bedroom. But Sunday, so Jenn could get better sleep, she said she's essentially both upstairs, correct? Yeah. Gotcha. Okay. Do you remember about what time you went to bed and woke up?
Bed probably 11, quarter after. Wound up after her party.
Okay, so here he does agree with Jenn in terms of he's saying 11, quarter after. Now, I had real trouble. I listened to it several times, and all I could catch was after her party. So there was something that he said there that he mumbled that was something about after her party. The reason I think this is significant, because I'm questioning whether or not Maddie and Stefan did go directly upstairs straight after Stefan arrived and after Maddie had got herself ready for bed. And that's something that comes up frequently throughout the clips that we're going to listen to.
When did you come back up north to help her?
I just got here this weekend.
Do you remember what day it was?
Sunday was her birthday party, so yeah, it was the evening after her birthday party. Sunday.
Okay. Do you remember what time you got here on Sunday?
8:30ish maybe.
Okay.
Just in time to make sure that she was doing all her nighttime routines.
Now, it's really interesting that Stefan talks about Maddie's nighttime routines, and then his explanation just completely halts, and you don't hear him speak for the next 19 seconds. At which stage he was actually then prompted by the detective, who gave him another question. But I find it really curious that he says that he got there just in time to make sure she was doing her nighttime routines. And then there's a long break. So is there something significant that occurred during Maddie's nighttime routines? Well, we know detectives were asking Jenn about her own medications and about the possibility of Stefan over-medicating Maddie, possibility of Stefan giving Maddie the wrong medications. Is this an indication that that is something that occurred this evening? Now, he doesn't clarify like Jenn does and say that she was already into it, doing her routines when he got there. Here, he is almost implying that he supervised her doing those routines. Either way, I can't help wondering if there definitely is something significant about Maddie's nighttime routines that particular evening.
Okay. Can you tell me when is the last time you were with Saw?
Saw her, I'm gonna say Sunday night.
Okay.
I heard her Monday getting ready for school.
So you last saw her Sunday night about what time?
I would say 11 p.m. before she went to bed.
And you were here at home? Gotcha.
Now, during this part of the interview, Jenn pulls out her entire arsenal. He asks her when was the last time that she saw Maddie, and we get the Soto sigh. And we've learned now that the Soto sigh tends to indicate that whatever is coming next is not entirely the truth. So when she says Sunday night, I have problems actually believing her. Especially when she follows up with, and I heard her Monday morning. We know that's definitely a lie. But did she see Maddie Sunday night? Why the Soto sigh? What is significant about Sunday night that warrants the Soto sigh when asked, when did you last see Maddie? And she mentions, when she talks about Maddie going to bed, we get the quiet Jenn voice. So did Jenn not witness Maddie heading up to bed? Was Jenn not around when Maddie went up to bed, or did Maddie not head up to bed at all Sunday evening? Something there, to me, the way Jenn is responding makes me question. Particularly when the detective says, and you were here at home, and we get the very, very quiet yes. Why the dropped voice? Is she actually admitting here that she wasn't home when Maddie headed upstairs to bed? Or if Maddie didn't even head to bed? I'm not sure. I'm just speculating here, but when you look at Jenn's patterns, two of the things that stand out for when she is trying to avoid giving an answer or when she is being deceptive is the Soto sigh and the quiet voice. And we got both of those when they were asking her about the Sunday night and about Maddie heading up to bed and about her being present at that time.
And where did she go to bed? Was she in her room, your room, or something else?
She actually slept upstairs with. We have a guest bedroom. We were all going to sleep together in the same bed, but I needed some good sleep, and I got a new job recently. I haven't been well rested. I needed some sleep, so I asked, "Hey, can you guys go to the guest bedroom upstairs?"
Mm-hmm.
I knew he was gonna get her ready and.
Sorry. Okay, so you needed some good sleep. So was it about 11 o'clock?
Yeah. I sent them upstairs, and I went to bed.
Okay. And that was about 11?
Yeah.
Okay, it totally irks me when I hear her say we were going to go to bed together and then she does that little laugh of hers. Jen, that's totally not acceptable either way. Your child should not have been in a bed with that man, with or without you present. So she puts it forward quite confidently, like it's no big deal. I sent them upstairs together. And in those early interviews, she does do that. She puts it forward like it's no big issue and that it should be perfectly acceptable for them to be upstairs together. But then, as she continues to talk, she loses the fluency in her speech. And she starts fumbling around this whole explanation of, I started a new job recently and I needed some sleep. And she says this a few times, that she needed some sleep. And in between all that, she's pausing, she's saying frequently. And then when she gets to the point of, I went to bed, there's a big long pause after that. So there's something significant definitely here in her speech. I don't know if it's that she suddenly realised, having come out with the story of her sending them up to bed together, that sounds as bad as what it actually is, and then she's tripping over it and doesn't know where to go from with that. Or if there is definitely something significant that she already knows regarding them being upstairs together. Don't forget, this was one of the early interviews. This is even before Stefan had been arrested. At this point in time, Jenn is supposed to believe that her daughter is simply missing. According to Jenn's narrative, she believes that Stefan took Maddie to school and that Maddie went missing after that. And yet she's stumbling around the whole anything to do with Stefan and Maddie being upstairs.
Oh, and then yesterday Sunday she had her birthday party, right?
Sunday she had her birthday party.
Okay, what time was that party at?
It started at 3 o'clock.
Okay, from 3 to what time?
I'm not sure. I wasn't there. I was at work.
Oh, okay, you weren't there.
But I know my sister got home around 8:30.
Was Stefan here at that time?
I'm not sure if he was here at the time, but I think he got here a little bit after. And he was like, okay, she was already doing what she was supposed to. She had taken her nighttime meds, and she was getting ready for bed, like taking a shower. She'd take showers at night. So he's like, okay, she was already on it. I didn't get home until, I'm going to say 10:30.
Okay.
And then at 11, I sent them to bed.
Okay, here's where I think the first cracks start to appear in Jenn's narrative. She's saying that Maddie was dropped off home at 8:30, and then Stefan arrived about 10 minutes later, by which stage Maddie was already into her routine. She'd taken her meds and she was having her shower. Okay, so Maddie took her meds then at 8:30 at night. Her hydroxyzine, which is supposed to make her drowsy and make her sleep. Now, my experience with any kind of medication, especially ones that are going to make you drowsy, is that usually they kick in within half an hour. At the longest, it's going to take an hour for them to kick in. And of course, how do you relax yourself at night time? You have a nice hot shower. So Maddie's taken her meds at 8:30. She has apparently had a very long shower, and yet then she was still wide awake when Jenn got home. To me, it seems unlikely. To me, it seems that Maddie probably, had she really truly taken her meds at 8:30, that by the time she finished her shower, she was probably done and ready for bed. If indeed she spent an hour in the shower. So, for her to be still awake at 10:30 and still yabbering on to Jenn all about her party, even though she was somewhat disappointed with her party, does that seem really likely? To me, it seems more likely that Maddie may have in fact already been asleep when Jenn got home.
When you're reporting her missing,
Yeah.
you remember writing a statement?
Yes.
Okay. In that statement, you say you saw Maddie.
I saw. I know. I misremembered. I didn't see her.
Okay.
I wanted to believe I saw her, but I didn't.
But when you're talking to the deputy on his body cam, you describe what she's wearing.
Because she had picked it out the night before.
Okay.
I told her to set up her clothes the night before to have it ready, so she was ready to go.
Okay, so for starters, here's where we need to start tallying up the many, many things that occurred in that half-hour period of time from when Jenn got home and Maddie went to bed. This being the first of them, that she told Maddie to get her clothes out and set her clothes out for the following day, and then she checked with her. She didn't look, she checked with her and asked her what clothes she had gotten out. Now I'm going to straight out call BS on this. This is a 13-year-old girl. Heck, my niece was picking out her clothes at 8. Maddie seems like a pretty determined young lady. I don't think that she would have been remotely interested in Jenn having a say in what she chose to wear. And do we really think that if this child had had her nighttime medications 2 hours earlier, that she would have been alert enough to pick out her clothes for the following day and lay them out? Not a chance. I think we can be pretty confident that this is Jenn trying to sound like a responsible mother. I think Jenn is trying to come up with the things that should have occurred that night rather than admit to the things that didn't occur at all. And this is one of those things where I think in Jenn's head, she thinks, well, a responsible mother, if someone was taking their child the following morning to give them a lift to school, would have their child make sure their clothes are ready. Now the other thing to consider here, of course, is the fact that Maddie essentially had her own little school uniform. She always wore that hoodie to school, by the sounds of it. She pretty much always wore shorts to school, by the sounds of it. So why would she even need to be prompted to get her clothes ready for the morning? Once again, I think this is all part of Jenn's fantasy. I think Jenn knows that she failed her daughter, and she's trying to sound like a better mother than she really was.
And the thing is, the night before, we had discussed, oh, Maddie, maybe he should leave a little bit earlier than normal so that you can go get breakfast with him at McDonald's. That would be a really cool day to start a Monday right after your birthday, having McDonald's at breakfast. And she's like, oh, that sounds like a good idea.
So that's the second thing that we have to add to that half-hour period of time. The conversation over going to McDonald's. Now, can we call a spade a spade? Going to Macca's for breakfast is hardly a treat. It's Macca's. Okay, maybe to Maddie it was. Who knows? But Jenn makes it sound like it's some fantastical adventure. Something way more exciting than actually what it would be. But not only that, her tone of voice makes it sound like this is just one of her fantasies. Here, Jenn is the star of this story. It was Jenn's idea that they go to Macca's for breakfast, because wouldn't that be a good thing to do to celebrate your birthday? Jenn's tone of voice here is completely different from any other instances, except there's a few other times when she's relating these conversations that she has with Maddie that basically make Jenn the parent of the year. So, is this another one of her fantasies? What would the parent of the year do? The parent of the year would suggest, well, since you're so lucky that Stefan's going to drive you to school, how about if he takes you to Macca's on the way? Aside from it just sounding totally not credible the way she's talking, here's a big issue I have. We're told that Macca's is close to the school, and hopefully those of you who know the area can help me out here, but it sounds like Macca's is quite close to the school. We're also told by Jenn that Maddie was embarrassed to be seen in Stefan's car because it was a hoopty, according to Jenn and Stefan. Do you really think that a 13-year-old who is supposedly embarrassed to be seen in Stefan's car would want to be seen going to McDonald's in his car with him and risk the possibility that there may be other kids from school grabbing Macca's on their way to school? Highly unlikely. So either Maddie wasn't embarrassed by Stefan's car, or Maddie wouldn't have wanted to go to Macca's because she wouldn't have wanted to be seen at Macca's getting in or out of Stefan's car. Either way, the narrative is starting to fall apart. The cracks are getting wider here. The narrative, these parts of the narrative just do not agree at all. She basically hasn't thought it through at all. If Maddie was so embarrassed by Stefan's car, there's no way known she would risk being seen by friends from school in Stefan's car at McDonald's. Because at 13, when you are conscious about things, whether or not this is the truth, and I doubt that it is the truth, but you know what 13-year-olds are like. Let's just run with the story for now that she was embarrassed by Stefan's car. There's no way known she would do anything that might involve her being seen in Stefan's car.
Now, when she went, do you remember what time she went to bed on Sunday?
I sent them to bed around 11 o'clock.
Okay. Did you see him or her anytime after that other than in the morning? Or talk to them? Either via text or yell through the walls or...
No, nothing like that. If anything, Stefan may have come down to use the restroom.
Okay, we know full well that there were text messages between Jenn and Stefan after Stefan and Maddie had supposedly gone upstairs to bed. Yet for some reason, Jenn is choosing to forget these and say that the only interaction after the pair of them went upstairs to bed was Stefan coming back downstairs to use the bathroom. Why does she need to avoid the part of the narrative where she's actually messaging him upstairs to tell him to make sure Maddie gets to bed right away, and where Stefan is supposedly messaging her and saying she's made her nest? Why does she want to avoid discussing that?
Did Stefan know about your doctor appointment on Monday? Did you tell him what your plans were on Sunday?
I'm not sure when I told him. I must have told him Sunday night, yeah, or Sunday, because there's no way I could have told him Monday morning if he didn't have his phone on him, and I didn't really talk to him that morning.
So far in that half-hour period of time, we have her organising Maddie with her clothes for the following day. Not only directing her to go and organise them, but then having Maddie relay them back to her. You also have her having a conversation with them about the trip to Macca's, and also apparently the discussion of her going to get her blood work done in the morning. Now, I've already discussed the way she said, well, he didn't have his phone with him in the morning, and we didn't really have a conversation in the morning. Which to me says, yes, you did have a conversation in the morning, she's just not going to tell you about it. Which of course also puts the whole morning timeline into question. Because to me, especially when you have Stefan saying he was in and out of her room and had several conversations with her, and yet according to Jenn, all that occurred was him going in to collect the dog and him telling her to go back to sleep. And here she's saying, yeah, we didn't really talk that the following morning. So it must have been the Sunday night that we had the conversation about the blood work appointment. Essentially what she's saying here, in my opinion, is that they did actually have that conversation the following morning at some point in time. Given that he was gone up until when she left for her appointment, to me that says that conversation occurred prior to when he left with Maddie early in the morning. Like I said once again, that puts her narrative relating to the dog out the window, and perhaps for once his narrative is closer to the truth, where he's talking about them having several conversations and him being in and out of her room.
But you told them to go Sunday night to go sleep together.
I did. That was a selfish move on my part. It's because I wanted a good night's sleep. I didn't want her kicking me or rolling into me or waking me up, or to hear her alarm so that it woke me up. I wanted to keep sleeping until I needed to sleep, because I just had not with my training schedule, I have not had a good night's sleep. My medication was out of whack. I was feeling funny and not like myself. And I knew that I needed another night's sleep and my medication in my body like ASAP, so I needed to go to bed. So I wasn't even comfortable sending her that night, but I just did it for my own selfish reasons.
So there's a lot of information here that Jenn has given us that I think people have skipped over, because I think listening to what she was saying about, it was a selfish move on her part because she wanted a good night's sleep. I think people just got so caught on that they didn't listen to what she was actually saying. Jenn's telling us that she was so out of sorts that she was having trouble interacting with people at work. She was struggling to interact with people. She also claimed that she was feeling funny. And to top it all off, she said she needed to get a good night's sleep ASAP. The picture she's creating here is of her being incapable of coming home and sitting and having this nice long conversation with Maddie and Stefan about Maddie's party. Of her just needing to not interact with people because she can't interact with people. Of her feeling so off that she just wanted to get to sleep and get to bed. I think here, when you actually listen to what Jenn is telling us, I think we're getting a bit closer to the truth here. Did Jenn come home and choose not to interact with Stefan and Maddie? Did Jenn come home and in her own selfish way take herself to bed? Okay, the problem with that is that she still tells us she sent Maddie and Stefan off upstairs to sleep together. Did that happen? Or did it happen a different way? Because I'm starting to lean towards Jenn not seeing Maddie at all on that Sunday night. And this becomes clearer as we listen to some more of the things that were said.
And so he would have gotten here like Sunday night?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
She went off at home around 8:30, and I think Stefan walked into the house about 10 minutes later and made sure that she was supposed to, which was take her meds and get in the shower and get ready for bed.
Yeah.
So when I got home from work, she had already showered, she had taken her meds, she was getting ready, she was ready.
I gotcha. Yeah, no, I thought I heard him say something about her like singing a song that night or introducing her to a new movie or something.
Yes, she started singing. So she's in chorus. She's got such a beautiful voice. She was singing, practicing one of her chorus songs, and Stefan heard, and he's like, "Wow, you have such a beautiful voice. Let's watch, I think, Sister Act."
Sister Act, yeah.
So we wanted to watch a movie about singing, and she liked it. But we didn't finish the whole thing.
So once again, Jenn adds herself into the script here. She was also present when they were watching Sister Act now, according to Jenn. So there's a few interesting things though here. Before she even talks about the Maddie singing to Stefan and Sister Act, we get the Soto sigh. There is something significant about Maddie singing to Stefan and them watching Sister Act. Jenn claims that they all watched it together. Maddie enjoyed it, but we didn't get time to watch it all. Well, given that she had the conversation with him about Macca's she sent Maddie off to prepare her clothes for the next day, questioned Maddie about her clothes for the next day. She also had the conversation with Stefan about her appointment. And this is all within a half-hour period of time, and also watched part of Sister Act. I'm wondering which part they watched, because either Jenn has this remarkable ability to bend time, or they may have only watched the beginning sequence, meaning that they probably didn't even catch any of the music, except perhaps Dolores singing in a bar somewhere. I'm just going from memory because I haven't seen that movie in probably 20 years. But the point here is that half an hour period of time is filling up quite a bit. But the other thing here is something is significant about Sister Act. Is she lying? Is the Soto Sai telling us she's lying? Possibly. Although she doesn't whisper about them watching Sister Act. I think perhaps the lie here could be her involvement. And I don't believe that if Stefan and Maddie watched Sister Act, I don't believe that it was occurring with Jenn in that half-hour period of time. And I'll come back to that.
Sunday in the middle of training, I couldn't miss to go to her birthday party, so I went to work. I was with my family all day. She had the best day. She was so happy when I got home and I saw her. At my house around 8:30 that night. I wasn't home. She got dropped off alone. About 10 to 15 minutes later, Stefan showed up.
At your house in Kissimmee?
At my house in Kissimmee, he called me. Or he texted me, I don't remember. But he let me know he was there and that she was getting ready for bed. She was doing her routine. So she took her nighttime meds and she got in the shower to get ready for bed.
What meds? What does she take?
She takes hydroxyzine.
Okay. What is it for?
It's for anxiety and for sleep.
Okay.
Now, could she take that by herself, or would he have given that to her?
I think she took it by herself. She got home and she had already taken it.
How do you know that?
That's what he told me.
That's what he told you. Okay.
He was there when you got home? You got home, they were already at the apartment? Okay.
I don't like her taking her meds without somebody visually watching her, because I don't want her to accidentally grab the wrong pill. She's comfortable enough to grab the pill but I'm like, no, I need to watch you take them.
Okay, so there's definitely consistency here about Maddie being dropped off home alone, meaning that when she got home, Stefan wasn't there. And I suspect it was actually planned that way so that Jenn's family wouldn't know that Maddie was being left there alone with Stefan. But we have the consistency of Maddie being dropped off, Maddie having her meds and taking her nighttime shower. We've had that several times from Jenn. We've heard that from Stefan. I think we can say that that did in fact occur. But then, when they're talking about asking her about her meds, and they're like, how do you know that she took her meds? Once again, we get the quiet voice, and I had to listen to it carefully a few times to catch what she said. She said, because he told me. So, two things in this. I don't think she believes that Maddie took her meds, because she's so quiet about pointing out that it was Stefan who told her that. Admittedly, at this point in time, she knows that Stefan is a mongrel and he's been already arrested for the CSAM stuff. She's still refusing to admit the other stuff, but I think here she is forced to acknowledge that he is a liar. Whether or not the conversation did occur that way and he said Maddie's taken her meds, I don't know, but she certainly doesn't want to have to say to them that she knows that Maddie took her meds because he told her. Well, Maddie's 13. Can't Maddie speak for herself? I'm sorry, but if you had said to your child, can you make sure that you take your meds when you get home so you're not having them too late? Wouldn't you then check with the child when you got home? The 13-year-old? Did you take your meds? Which bottle did you take them from? How many did you have out of the bottle? That's what a responsible parent would do. But apparently, Maddie can't speak for herself. Jenn had to ask Stefan if Maddie had taken her meds, like Maddie was just a 3-year-old incapable of actually relaying to Jenn what occurred. Or perhaps it is because Jenn didn't see Maddie on the Sunday night, so she had to rely on whatever it was that Stefan told her in terms of what actually happened after Maddie arrived home.
I got home around 10:30. I started getting ready for bed myself. I started eating and taking my meds because I have to take meds. When I went to take my meds, I realized, oh my god, I forgot to take my Saturday night's meds, which is why I felt so weird and so abnormal and not myself Sunday while I was at work. Everyone at work noticed I was acting different and not being myself. Like I couldn't smile in front of the guests. I felt this wave of depression that I hadn't felt in years. It was my bipolar symptoms coming up again that I've been medicating myself for all this time. I realized I forgot to take my meds and I said, you guys, I need a good night's sleep. I need to take my meds. I sent them to sleep upstairs in the guest bedroom so that I could get a good night's sleep. Suggested that we all sleep together in the same bed together, but not the easiest person to sleep with. She rolls around, she punches, she kicks. We have a king size bed and she typically sleeps on one side and she'll end up on my side when we wake up.
Okay.
So I asked her, I'm like, no, please, I need a good night's sleep. If you guys can go upstairs and let me sleep.
So she's telling us a different thing again here. She's saying that she got home at 10:30 and she started getting herself ready for bed, taking her meds, eating, and that's when she decided that she needed to send them upstairs, and she said to them, I need you to go upstairs and sleep upstairs so I can get a decent night's sleep. So at this point in time, her narrative doesn't include any conversation with either of them. It sounds like she's come home, she's had a bipolar meltdown, started getting herself ready for bed and taking her meds, taking her eating food, and essentially told them, sod off, I don't want you in my face. So when you listen to everything that Jenn says about the Sunday night, this is the most consistent part of her story. The fact that she came home, she was feeling out of sorts, having a bit of a bipolar moment, and that she felt this desperate need to take her meds and go to bed. So perhaps all the other things are in fact invented, and that all Jen did was come home, take her meds, and go to bed, and everything else is just fabricated. Jenn wants to create this fantasy world where she's the perfect mother, and the stories that she's giving are what she believes would be what she should do as a mother. But they're not consistent, and they certainly don't fit into her timeline. So let's see what else is said in these various interviews.
I took my meds, and then I told them to start getting ready for bed, to start heading upstairs and get ready because it was already almost 11 o'clock. It's past her bedtime. She needs to go to sleep. So I sent them upstairs. I think he may have come down at one point to pee before bed, and then he went back upstairs. He uses my restroom because the roommates upstairs don't want to share a restroom with a male.
Okay.
Yeah, so they just he uses my restroom. Sorry, where did I?
You're fine. Sunday night he came downstairs, maybe overnight to use the restroom.
Yeah, and then he went back upstairs and they went to sleep. Or right, I think they went to sleep.
Okay.
Now, bearing in mind that this is the interview where they started putting the pressure on Jenn, she's lost the flow of her story here, meaning that she's forgotten all the bits of her narrative that used to be in her narrative. The watching Sister Act, the talking about the party, the getting Maddie ready for bed. None of these things have been included here. She started out with her classic pseudo-sigh, which to me says she was struggling here with the narrative. And I think perhaps she did lose her rhythm and forgot about the other inventions that she had made. And she's basically doubled down on saying that she took her meds, she got ready to go to bed, and she sent them upstairs. And then she talks about Stefan coming back down at one point. Now, what I find particularly interesting was her body language when she said, and then they went to sleep. There was just something a little odd about it. So I'm going to play you that bit again, and I'd love to know what you think is going on here.
Or right, I think they went to sleep.
Okay.
Now, my take on that, when she says, well, I think they went to sleep, is that she's displaying some major uncertainty. Well, I think they went to sleep. To me, that infers that they may not have gone to sleep, or that something else may have occurred, which she perhaps knows about at that period in time. It's just a really odd statement to say, for starters, given that you've sent them upstairs to go to sleep. And the body language that goes with it certainly makes you question what it is going on in Jenn's head at that moment in time.
So the living situation with them, I'll be honest, seems weird. It's weird to me. She's got a bedroom downstairs. What's kind of the mindset or the thought process, the communication you've had with Stefan about, you know, she's not going to sleep in her bed, but you guys are going to go sleep in the guest bedroom?
So originally the plan was that all three of us were going to sleep in my bed together.
And I'm not just saying Sunday, I mean like...
Oh, okay.
Like in the past, too.
So, I had a rule. She wasn't allowed to sleep in his bedroom at all. Like, no sleepovers, no nothing. For a very long time. For years. It wasn't until June that he got his own bedroom and I sent him upstairs. That's where the requests for sleepovers started.
Okay.
And I kept telling her no. I'm not comfortable with that. But eventually at some point, like we really want to watch, I forgot what movie it was. They really wanted to watch something and I was really tired. And I said, okay, fine. Go ahead, but this can't happen often. And yeah, I allowed her to go upstairs and sleep with him. But honestly, I think I can count on one hand how many times that's happened, and it hasn't been many times that I've allowed her to have a supper party with him, to be alone in a bed with him. I'm usually around all the time.
First of all, can I just point out 1,700 CSAM images, and she's claiming I'm usually around in the bed all the time. Does that mean that she was present when he was taking those images? I just wanted to pull her up on that, essentially. Now, I think what she said there is hugely significant. She's talking about other instances. She's talking about their sleepovers, which just hearing her use that term about a grown-ass man and a teenage girl makes me want to vomit. But she's saying she allowed it because they wanted to watch a movie together and that she wanted to sleep. Well, let's stop and think about what's being said here. So, when Maddie and Stefan were sharing a room together, it was when they were watching a movie together upstairs in his room. And we have Stefan telling us that when he got there and Maddie sang to him, that he wanted to show her Sister Act, and so they watched Sister Act. So where did that occur? Did that occur upstairs? Are we getting a bit closer to the truth here? Jenn tries to include herself in the Sister Act narrative, but she drops that pretty quickly. She claims that they were watching it together, but they ran out of time. Now, this is one of those icky subjects that I try to avoid, but I think this is something that needs to be mentioned here. Stefan has an addiction. He was addicted to the acts that he was doing. He hadn't been with Jenn and Maddie for several weeks that we know of. What do you think was the first thing on his mind when he got to that apartment that night? I don't think it was about sitting and having chit-chat with Jenn. I don't think it was necessarily about sitting and watching a movie with Maddie. You know where I'm going with this. When he got there, Maddie was getting ready for bed. We know there have been multiple questions by detectives regarding Maddie's medications that night. And we have this story about him wanting to watch Sister Act with Maddie. Was that an excuse to get her upstairs into his room? Is it possible, as so many people have speculated, that she was given more than her regular medications that night, and that he basically set it up to have a sleepover, as Jenn calls them, to watch Sister Act. Because when they had their little sleepovers previously, it was so that they could watch a movie together. Is this what happened? Did he get her upstairs in his room, even before Jenn got home, on the pretense of watching a movie so he could do what he does? Is it possible that by the time Jenn got home, Maddie was already unconscious from being over-drugged, or worse? Because I'm really struggling to see any truth in Jenn's comments other than her talking about coming home, wanting to take her tablets and go to bed. The rest of it does not sound overly plausible. But if we break down what they're telling us to bare bones, we have Stefan telling us that he watched a movie with Maddie. We have Jenn on various occasions telling us that Stefan and Maddie would have a sleepover when they wanted to watch a movie together, and she would allow that. We also have Jenn telling us that she came home, started her bedtime routine, and took her meds and told them to go upstairs. I actually suspect, when you break it down like that even the telling them to go upstairs so she can have a good night's sleep part of it is made up because she doesn't want to admit that she didn't see Maddie on Sunday night. That she was so selfish that she came home and her only focus was Jenn. Jenn came home, Jenn took her meds, Jenn had her sub sandwich, or whatever it was called, in her room by herself and went to bed.
What do you think happened that night into Monday? Because we do not know. We do not know if her murder occurred Sunday or Monday. All we know is that when you went to bed, they went to bed together, and she's no longer here. So I need to know what you think happened to her, how he got her out of the house, where he went, how he got her in the car. What is your thought on what happened?
I think she was killed Sunday night into Monday morning. I'm thinking he carried her out of the house.
Okay, Sunday night into Monday morning. I think that if we do get any details from the autopsy, we're going to find out that physiologically that makes the most sense. It couldn't have been much earlier than midnight that what happened occurred. It's not something that I'm going to go into in depth here. I'm sure other people have covered it, but it's just one of those topics that I find really triggering to discuss. So she's essentially saying it occurred directly after she sent them up to bed together. If indeed she did send them up to bed together. Did she see Stefan that night? Did she see Maddie that night? Did she see both? Or only Stefan? I can't help wondering, given the text messages, if perhaps Maddie was already upstairs, unconscious, and Stefan perhaps gave Jenn the story of either she was so engrossed in the movie or she was already asleep because her meds had already kicked in. But I'm really starting to feel that perhaps Jenn did not see Maddie on the Sunday night.
My understanding is that on February 25th of this year, you were working at the hotel on Disney property out at Coronado Springs.
Yes.
You
have to answer
out loud and loud enough to get caught on the record. I know you're upset. I know.
Yes.
All right. And did you get off at 10 p.m.?
Yes.
All right. Did you go directly home?
Yes.
About how long does it take you to get home?
About 25 to 30 minutes.
And when you get home, who is downstairs, if anybody? You have a two-story, is it a townhome? Is that the best word for it?
Yeah, it's a townhome.
If anybody is downstairs, who is downstairs?
I saw my daughter Madeline and Stefan.
Do you recall what Madeline was wearing?
No.
And do you recall what Stefan was wearing?
I can't tell you, no.
Okay, so when the answer doesn't actually agree with the question, that's when I have an issue. And I question whether the person is being untruthful. Jenn was asked who is downstairs, if anybody. She doesn't say Maddie and Stefan were downstairs. She says, I saw my daughter Madeline and Stefan. Yes, you could say that is kind of answering the question, but that's not natural speech. Why is she saying it that way? You saw them? Where did you see them? Are you saying that you saw them downstairs? Are you saying that you went upstairs and saw them? Where did you see them? You haven't answered the question of who, if anyone, was downstairs. And when did you see them? Did you see them when you got home? When you look at it that way, she's actually being somewhat evasive. They then ask her what Maddie was wearing, and she can't remember. Then they ask, can you tell or do you recall what Stefan was wearing? And there's a long pause, and then very quietly she says, I can't tell you, no. So, are you saying that you know that he was wearing, but you can't tell them? Because then that shows up the fact that you don't know what your daughter was wearing, but you know what he was wearing? Or you can't tell them for some other reason? Jenn has a really good way of avoiding giving direct answers to questions. Instead, she comes out with comments like that. She can't tell them what Stefan was wearing. She's not saying that she can't remember what he was wearing, she just can't tell them. Did she see Stefan and not Maddie? And I know some people have said this is not the case, but for most parents, that last bit of time that you had with your child before they're gone forever is seared indelibly in your brain. She should know what Maddie was wearing. She tells them later that Maddie usually wears, her sleepwear is usually shorts and a t-shirt. She claims that they left Maddie's last clothes that she was wearing on the bathroom floor and walked around them and didn't touch them. She claims that she tidied up or she straightened up the house during the day when she thought Maddie was at school, and apparently she didn't see Maddie's pyjamas anywhere, because I've looked at the images from the bathroom. I don't see Maddie's pyjamas on the floor there. It's hard to see if they're in the hamper, but Jenn should know. Jenn should know what Maddie was wearing, even if she can't remember seeing her that night, which for the most part people tend to remember, like I said, the last time they see their child. But if she can't remember specifically that night, she should have seen Maddie's clothes, and that should have been enough of a prompt to help her remember. Your daughter's missing. Wouldn't you go looking in her bedroom to see if any of her things are missing? Wouldn't you look in your bathroom to see if any of her toiletries are missing? Wouldn't you notice her pyjamas that she was supposed to have been wearing that morning, lying in one of those two rooms? Or maybe she simply can't remember what Maddie was wearing that night because she didn't see Maddie.
When you get home from work, do you need to kind of eat a late dinner before you get settled in for bed?
Yes.
And do you eat there at your home?
Yes.
What do you eat?
I think I had a pub sub waiting for me in the house, a sandwich.
Okay. Did anybody join you in sitting down and eating?
No, I ate in my bedroom.
So she talks about coming home and having her pub sub for dinner. And they ask her, did anyone join you while you're having the pub sub? And she says, no, I ate in my bedroom. Now that implies to me that she went and sat in her bedroom and ate it on her own with no one else around. It is implying that there was no one in her bedroom, even though she claims to have spoken with Maddie about her presence, yada yada yada. This fits in with what she had said earlier about coming home, starting getting herself ready for bed, taking her meds, having something to eat, sending them off to upstairs to sleep, and going to bed herself. Of course, if you try to include all the other parts of the narrative, somehow she now has to fit in her pub sub with sending Maddie to prep her clothes, talking to Stefan about her blood work appointment, talking to the pair of them about them probably going to Macca's for a special breakfast, watching Sister act with them for a little while, and talking about the party, all in a half an hour period of time.
I believe in one of your former interviews you mentioned that Madeline might have gone over with you kind of what she got at the birthday party since you didn't have the chance to go because you were at work. Mm-hmm. When and where does that occur?
That occurs like right after I get home. It occurs in my bedroom. Everyone's in my room.
And so by everyone, let's just be clear since I understand you have some roommates. So what do you mean by everyone?
Okay. Madeline, Stefan, and myself were in my bedroom.
Okay.
So apparently in Jenn's fantasy world, she can exist in two parallel universes. Because she's saying right after she got home was when the three of them sat together in her room and spoke about Maddie's party. And yet, just before that, she spoke about getting home, and straight after she got home, sitting alone in her bedroom eating a pub sub. So, you've got two alternate realities going on, two parallel universes essentially, because she can't have been sitting alone in her room eating a pub sub if she was also, at the same time, sitting in her room with Maddie and Stefan having a conversation about Maddie's party. I'm actually leaning towards the pub sub. Like I said, it fits with the whole story of her bipolar being out of whack, her wanting to take her meds and go to bed.
Okay. At this point in time, do you recall what Madeline was wearing?
I don't know.
Let me ask it a different way. Can you tell me whether or not she was wearing a long-sleeved green sweatshirt and jeans?
Oh, no.
Okay. Would she have kind of been in her bed gear, or do you think she could have still been in the dress that she wore to her birthday celebration?
She would have been in pajamas. I can't recall the exact pajamas, but she would have been in pajamas. She had already, by this point in the evening, she had already showered and changed out of that birthday dress.
Okay, so there's a few things going on here. First of all, do you recall what Maddie was wearing? I don't know. I don't recall. No, I can't remember. I don't know what Maddie was wearing. That to me implies that she has no idea because she never saw Maddie. Not I can't remember because I saw her. I don't know. I wouldn't have the faintest clue because I didn't see Maddie in her pajamas. There's a difference. And then she says she would have been in her pajamas. Well, yes, she would have been. But that's not the language that I would expect. I would expect, well, she was in her pajamas. I just can't remember which ones. Maybe would have been in her pajamas. Possibly, maybe comes out that way. But straight after, I don't know. I'm struggling to believe that she saw Maddie. Like I said, she should know which pajamas Maddie was in. Even if for some reason she's having a mental blank, she should remember very carefully walking around them on the bathroom floor over the subsequent days, or seeing them in Maddie's bedroom when she was straightening up and putting things away, or having gone into Maddie's bedroom after she realised Maddie was missing and seen them when she was trying to figure out if Maddie had taken anything with her. Something just does not add up here at all. To me, that says that she literally doesn't know what pyjamas Maddie was wearing that night, if Maddie was wearing pyjamas that night, because she didn't see Maddie at all. Now, when he was clarifying with her if Maddie was wearing her pyjamas, he said, let me put it this way, was she wearing a green top and trousers? Which was then she said no, she would have been wearing pyjamas. But with that in mind, she says to him, referring to the pyjamas, she had already showered and changed out of that, and she pauses and then adds dress. Now, my question, that is a pretty skimpy looking dress. And I'm wondering, we know that Maddie was staying at her grandma's house for a while, so she probably had extra clothes with her at her grandmother's house. Maddie got home at 8 o'clock. Now, her friends left the party at 7 o'clock. If it was starting to get cold, because it's February, I'm thinking February in Florida, the evenings probably do get a bit chilly. Looking at the body-worn camera stuff with Jenn, she was pretty heavily rugged up when they were outside the apartment. So is it possible that Maddie had actually changed into a hoodie and jeans after her friends left the party at 7 o'clock into something a bit more warmer, because at that point in time it was only family around, so she was happy to put some warm clothes on? Is that why Jenn says she'd already changed out of that, and then adds dress as a last minute thought because she doesn't want to give away the fact that perhaps Maddie was wearing those clothes? Now that's possibly way out, probably completely wrong, but it's been bugging me for ages trying to figure out how Stefan could have redressed Maddie and why Maddie would have been dressed in jeans and not shorts. Jeans would be especially hard to redress someone in after they were deceased. Likewise, Maddie was found wearing full underwear, like a bra. That's another thing that would be extremely hard to put onto someone after they were deceased. Certainly not a one-person job, if you ask me. Is it possible that something happened and Maddie was dressed warmly from the party? I can think of lots of reasons why that's not the case. And perhaps Maddie was just upstairs, already asleep or already passed out in her pyjamas, and Jenn just simply didn't see her. Maybe Jenn is not certain if Maddie had worn something else after the dress, because she didn't see Maddie after the party, didn't speak to Maddie after the party. Maybe I'm just overreaching here too much, but it's definitely interesting.
She had already, by this point in the evening, she had already showered and changed out of that birthday dress.
Okay. How long were the three of you in your bedroom?
I'm going to say for about 30 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And did Madeline tell you about the party?
She was really happy.
Did she tell you what food they had there at the party?
Yeah, they had her favorites.
What are her favorites?
Puerto Rican food. So arroz con gandules.
All right, so you're gonna have to translate to English. I know frijoles and arroz and a couple other things, but help me out.
If I recall correctly, she had requested rice. It's a type of rice and beans.
Mm-hmm.
It's rice with pigeon peas.
Okay.
And pernil, which is, I'm not sure how to. It's a pork, but I'm not sure how they cook it.
Okay.
So it's cooked pork. That's typically what she requests for her parties. That's like her favorite meal.
So that sounds convincing, right? She's giving details of the food that they had at the party, according to Maddie. But when you listen to what she's not saying, Maddie told me this was what we had. She's saying, Maddie had requested these things. That's typically what she requests. Now, we know from Maddie's friend that they did have interesting foods there that her friend was unfamiliar with, so it's possible that they did have these foods. But Jenn isn't saying, this is what Maddie told me. Jenn is saying, this is what she had requested. that's not saying that that's what they actually had. This is her saying this is what she had requested. There's a presumption there. She requested this, so this must be what they had. Did they discuss what food Maddie had at the party? Or is Jenn just going with past history because it makes a good story? It makes it sound like she's the good mother who spoke to her daughter at the party and knows all about the party.
Okay. And what kind of gifts did she get?
She got a lot of money.
Okay.
That's what she ended up showing me. I think she had a few trinkets, but like most of it was just a big wad of money that she was so excited for.
Now, during this 30 minutes that the three of you are in your bedroom, is Madeline engaging in any of her kind of nighttime routine, or, you know, getting ready for bed? What else is going on, if anything?
We spent a long time talking about gifts and having her show me, and then we counted out her own money. I can't remember if she had finished with all of her bedtime routine.
Okay. Does she brush her teeth at night?
In the shower.
In the shower? Okay. And that occurred before you got home?
Yeah.
And my understanding with her nighttime medication is that's something that you would like to make sure she had bedtime or so?
Something like that, yeah.
So were you present for that occurring, or did that occur after you got home?
That did not occur on my call. I believe I had instructed Maddie when she got home to go ahead and take them herself.
Okay. And is that something that she's allowed to do?
From time to time, yeah.
So here's where she really pulls out the story about the trinkets and getting lots of money, and that's what they spoke about. And then he asks her if anything else occurred during that period of time, and suddenly she can't remember if Maddie had finished getting ready for bed, even though previous narratives were basically that Maddie had done all that even before Stefan arrived. And yet now she can't remember, and he has to prompt her, like brushing her teeth and all taking meds and stuff, and all that happened before you got home. So to me, it seems like she's not differentiating that period of time from before she got home to afterwards. She's forgetting here what's supposed to have happened before she saw Maddie. Is that because she didn't see Maddie? Now we know that Maddie, according to her friend, there was only one present on the table, apparently. Maddie was most upset because she only got one present. We have heard some speculation that she was also disappointed because she thought she was getting more money. And Jenn says she had a wad of money. That's all subjective, of course. So what Maddie may have been unhappy with may have still been a wad of money. But it's just interesting that she's introducing this part of the narrative here after basically establishing that she had a pub sub, took her meds and went to bed. She can't remember what Maddie was wearing. Prompted, she's like, well, yes, she would have been in her pyjamas. She can't remember if Maddie did anything else during that half-hour period of time. She needs prompting to be reminded that, yeah, that's right, Maddie had finished getting ready for bed before then. Her narratives are falling apart. even this whole story about the party, to me, doesn't ring true. And like I said very early on, 2 hours after taking her meds, Maddie's going to be pretty much zonked out anyway. So, did that conversation really occur? To me, it seems highly unlikely. But if it did occur, was it squeezed into that half-hour period with all the other things that she did? Because, wow, they must have been so very busy for that half hour. Maddie, who was supposedly 2 hours into her nighttime meds and should have been zonked out. Jenn, who was supposedly having a bit of a bipolar meltdown and was so desperate that she needed to get sleep ASAP. And yet, somehow, they managed to sit up for half an hour and do all these things and have this in-depth conversation about food, about trinkets, counting money. Wow, they were so busy. If you were to ask me what I do in the half hour before I go to bed, usually it's probably something that requires very little effort, because at that stage I'm really tired, and that's without the assistance of any medications or a bipolar meltdown. I certainly could not achieve all those things in the half hour before I go to bed.
All right, now, Madeline, does she lay out her clothes for school the next day, or is that something she gets in the morning, makes a game time decision like my kid?
Typically, it is a game time decision morning of.
Okay. What about this specific evening? Do you remember anything about it?
Yes. This evening, we had, I had already discussed prior to Stefan coming to visit that he was going to help me take Maddie to school that day. So because I knew that that was what was going to happen that night, I had asked Maddie, pick out your clothes, have everything ready, have your backpack ready, your water bottle, everything you need ready, so that way you could just grab your stuff and head out. It won't be too much of a hassle in the morning. And so she did. She picked out her clothing. I asked her what she was wearing, and she told me what she had picked out. I said, okay, fine.
All right, so she picks it out, but does she physically take it out of somewhere, wherever she stores her clothes, and put it somewhere?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
So I'm wondering when this occurred. Did this occur while Jenn was alone eating her pub sub in her room? Did this occur while they were all together in her room talking about Maddie's party? Did this occur after that? Because that half an hour is so chockers right now. But do we honestly believe that a child who is well and truly ready for bed is, at the very least, sleepy, is going to actually be capable of organising herself and pulling out clothes, or sorting out clothes, or even having a conversation about clothes when she's 2 hours into her meds? And Jenn, who's having a bipolar meltdown, was actually capable of being that organised in her thinking? I don't buy it.
What's her normal routine for getting ready for bed?
We give her her meds.
I'm sorry, take your time.
We get ready for bed. I'd give her her medication. She would get in the shower.
Take a long shower, I understand?
like an hour plus. Yeah.
Okay.
She loved it. She'd get out, she'd get dressed, she'd let her hair towel dry for a while, and then she would brush it. We would watch some TV.
So, unfortunately, this wasn't a filmed interview, because I think Jenn's body language would have been really fascinating here. But she says about giving Maddie her meds, and then it takes her 25 seconds nearly to continue on with describing what is something that was occurring every night, just a standard nighttime routine. And yet talking about Maddie's meds stopped her in her tracks. And she needed time to recover from that. She needed time before she could continue talking about what occurred. Note also, she talks about when Maddie's had her shower and done her hair, that she sits down and watches a bit of television. So perhaps Maddie got ready for bed and sat down and watched a movie upstairs with Stefan. Did she ever come back down? Did Jenn not see her, but is, as I said previously, creating a narrative to make herself look like the good mum? Because, well, who wants to be the bad mother and say, I came home, I went to bed, I didn't bother saying goodnight to my daughter?
What was the discussion about when Stefan and Madeline were going to leave on the 26th?
There wasn't one.
So you didn't know anything about these plans, or did you? Or
I knew that they were going to go to McDonald's, but not 7 o'clock in the morning. That wasn't.
Okay, so apparently we can take the McDonald's story off the long list of fiction that she gave us about things that occurred in that half an hour period of time. Because he's like, what's the conversation that occurred about that? And apparently there wasn't one. She knew they were going to, but she doesn't, in this interview, go back to her story of, well, I thought it would be a great idea, so I suggested it. So we can wipe that now from the many, many things that supposedly occurred in that half-hour period of time. Which, of course, makes you question which other things did she present as being things that occurred are also fiction.
okay. And were there ever any instances where she had taken too much of the medicine? Perhaps you and Stefan had given her medicine, not knowing that the other person had?
Yes, that's happened once before.
Just once or more?
I want to say once.
Okay. Were you taking medicinal marijuana in pill form at any point, or THC?
Yes.
And what do those pills or tablets or capsules look like?
They're purple capsules.
Did you ever suspect or confront Stefan about giving those medications to Madeline?
No.
So during this incident where Madeline had been double dosed with hydroxyzine, do you recall any conversation you had with Stefan and inquiring as to whether or not he had accidentally given her any of your THC?
That hadn't occurred to me. I had asked him the one morning Maddie wouldn't wake up and get ready for school, and she was just out of it. I assumed it was medication related. Okay. But I didn't realize, I'm like, did this one medication hit her too hard because we gave it to her late? I called poison control. Mm-hmm. I needed to see what would happen. Because at this point, I think I had gotten Stefan to admit that he gave her a second dose of the sleeping meds as well, because he thought I had given it to her in the first place.
Okay.
But that was with hydroxyzine. I didn't know anything about THC, the marijuana.
I'm just asking you.
Oh.
I'm asking if you remember having that conversation, because there is a conversation on your phone about you were relaying that Madeline said that she suspected that it was different bigger pills, and you relayed that to Stefan and had a conversation with him. And if you don't remember it because it was a year ago, that's fine.
So, alongside all these things which to me indicate that Jenn did not see Maddie on the Sunday night, here we have the detectives really, really interested in Maddie's meds and really interested in past occasions of Maddie being overdosed, either with her own medications or with Jenn's marijuana. So is this telling us what occurred? Now we know that there was also a broken hyoid bone and that the cause of death was strangulation. But was Maddie also overdosed? In which case, did Jenn not see Maddie on the Sunday night because Maddie was already passed out upstairs? And maybe Stefan told Jenn, no, Maddie's already asleep. And Jenn, not wanting to sound like the bad mother, as I said, who didn't go upstairs to say goodnight to her daughter, because we know Jenn's far too lazy to get her ass up those stairs to say goodnight to Maddie. So did she just simply accept that, have her pub sub, grab her meds and go to bed and not worry about the fact that Maddie was upstairs with Stefan? Now, before we look at a few documents and at the actual timeline, I just want to go through a few statements that were made by other people and one part of the first 911 call. So we'll jump into that and then we'll finish off with some information from documents and from the timeline.
What I do know is that Maddie loved clothes and she loved looking nice, and I can imagine that she would pick out her own clothes. I don't see Jenn being the one picking out her clothes.
Do you think?
Now, for those of you who may not be aware, Natalie is actually best friends with Jenn's sister. So Natalie has known Maddie her entire life. So when she says Maddie loves clothes, she'd be the one to pick out her own clothes, I believe her. And like I said, we know that Maddie had her special uniform for what she would wear for school anyway. So Natalie's telling us Maddie would pick out her own clothes. Maddie didn't need prompting, essentially, to pick out her own clothes. Jenn didn't need to approve Maddie's outfit, which is what Jenn was essentially saying she did. So I believe that the story about, oh, I knew what she was wearing because I told her to pick out her clothes the night before, I don't believe that. So why else could Jenn have known what Maddie was wearing? And she was wrong because she claimed it was shorts. But why? Why this whole narrative? Because it doesn't seem right to me. So listen very carefully to this excerpt from the first 911 call. See what you can pick up.
And then, what color shirt and pants was she last seen wearing?
Hold on, let me ask. Then, what color shirt and, like, what was she last wearing? Hold on, we're finding out.
Okay.
Now, unfortunately, we can't actually hear the response to what she was wearing. But to me, it certainly sounded like Jenn's voice. So the operator said, what was she wearing? And the person, the sister, whichever sister it was, specifically said, Jenn, what was she wearing? Not, can you ask Jenn what she was wearing? But she was speaking directly to Jenn. We hear something that sounds like Jenn's voice in the background, and I've tried to boost it. That's as much as I could boost it without it becoming just distorted and random noise. But then she says to the operator, hold on, we're trying to find out. Hang on. Jenn's supposed to know what her daughter was wearing, because she told her to pick out her clothes the night before. And then, a few hours later, when law enforcement were in attendance and asked what Maddie was wearing, she corrected Stefan, because she apparently knew what Maddie was wearing. But when the 911 call was made and Jenn was asked what was Maddie wearing, the person making the 911 call had to say to the operator, hold on, we're trying to find out. To me, that very much sounds like Jenn's response had been that she didn't know she would have to ask Stefan or something like that. Now, I hope that there is someone out there who can really boost that audio and find out what was actually said in the background. Because maybe they can prove me wrong. And maybe it's someone saying, well, hang on, Jenn's on the phone, or something like that. But to me, it sounded like Jenn's voice, and it sounded like the person making the 911 call was speaking directly to Jenn. She said, Jenn, what was Maddie wearing? Now, if you're asking someone a question and you see that they haven't heard you say their name, you're going to repeat their name. You're not just going to blurt the question out and hope that they heard you. So the fact that she said Jenn and then asked the question, to me suggests that Jenn was listening to the question. Hence, the answer should have been immediately given, not the response of, hang on, we're trying to find out. Did Jenn know what Maddie was wearing or not? Okay, so if we look at these texts again, in the context of the Sister Act story, if Jenn had come home and not actually seen Maddie, and perhaps Stefan said, well, she's asleep, or she's upstairs, she's riveted watching Sister Act, and I don't want to disturb her. The text message, make sure she goes to bed right now. Perhaps Stefan had television on loud to hide the sounds that were occurring in that room. And maybe that's why, whenever there were requests for sleepovers, they were because they wanted to watch a movie together. Because if you're going to put a movie on, it's going to make noise, and people aren't going to hear anything else that's going on because of the noise. You have the response, she built her nest and she's settling in now. Why were there no text messages from Jenn to Maddie? Go to bed now. Or, good night, sweetheart. I'll talk to you in the morning. we don't see any messages between Jenn and Maddie. We only see these messages between Jenn and Stefan. There's something very hinky with that going on. This whole Sunday night narrative is all wrong, in my opinion. Something is just really wrong with what we're supposed to believe occurred on the Sunday night. What Jenn is telling us occurred on the Sunday night. To me, there's more things that point to her not seeing Maddie than there are to her seeing Maddie. The other possibility with this text, Maddie was in a foul mood after the party, or at the party. Maybe Maddie didn't want to speak to Jenn when Jenn got home, and refused to go downstairs because she was in a bad mood with Jenn for not going to the party. Maybe that's why Jenn messaged Stefan to say, make sure she goes to bed now. Because messaging Maddie would have been pointless. Just another possibility. Yeah, I know this is a long video, but I wanted to just push on and get through it all rather than split it up, because I think it's easier just to look at it all in one go when you're looking at one particular thing. So these are the steps recorded on Maddie's phone, and the things I'm looking at are the ones towards the top. So at roughly 10 minutes past 10, there were 9 steps taken on the phone. And then at 20 past 11, 31 steps were taken, 1 floor climbed, which they say matches when she was sent upstairs to sleep. Technically it doesn't, because Jenn claims that she sent them upstairs at 11. But here's the thing. Jenn supposedly got home at 10:30. We have Stefan claiming that him and Maddie were watching Sister Act. And from past history, it sounds like when they watch stuff together, they watch stuff together upstairs. But in which case, it would have been more than 9 steps that occurred on Maddie's phone prior to then. And there are no steps recorded on Maddie's phone around the time that Jenn got home. So, was Maddie's phone just sitting somewhere, and maybe someone else retrieved her phone at 20 past 11 and took it upstairs? Maybe someone was told, Maddie forgot her phone, take it upstairs to her. We don't know who took Maddie's phone upstairs. This doesn't tell us anything about whether or not Maddie spent time with Jenn on the Sunday night. What it does tell us is that there were no steps recorded on Maddie's phone at around the time that Jenn got home, even though Jenn claims that she sat by herself in her bedroom and had her pub sub. Maddie's a teenage girl. I would expect her to carry her phone everywhere with her just in case one of her friends sends her a message. But she went into Jenn's room at 10:30 without her phone, because there's no steps recorded. Just something to consider. Now, before we have a look at the timeline, I just want to play one more piece of audio, because this is something that to me is important. And no, I'm not being smart by putting it in at the end after talking about the stuff from the documents. I'm putting it in at the end because I somehow missed it and realised that I missed it. But it does actually fit perfectly here because I think it ties a lot of what I've just been saying together.
At any point, did you ever see Stefan alone with Maddie?
There was only one time where I had sent a message to Jenn. I want to say I couldn't sleep. I was going to the gym and they were playing Atari. Like I heard them playing Atari, and the door was like partially closed. And I texted Jenn. I was like, "Hey, I just want to make sure you're okay with this because you know I grew up in a very different household. Like my dad doesn't play, so that's just the way I was raised." So I sent her a message. I was like, "Hey, are you good with this? Like, are you okay with her being in his room?"
So this is the room upstairs.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, those were around the time that they were broken up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And what did Jenn say?
I mean, I can pull it up, but I'm pretty sure it was thank you, friend, you're good.
So, it was perfectly acceptable for Jenn, for Maddie and Stefan to hang out together in the upstairs room when Jenn wasn't around. And is that the way it usually worked? Is that why Jenn is so vague? From looking at all these things, it is my speculation that Maddie came home, she took her meds, Stefan essentially lured her upstairs to his room under the pretense of watching Sister Act because, like I said, Stefan is an addict and he needed to get his fix of Maddie. I know that sounds gross, but it's better than putting it in other terms. Did something happen upstairs, or did he drug Maddie and she was passed out when Jenn got home? Did Maddie just not come downstairs at all when Jenn came home, and Jenn simply came home, had her pub sub, had her meds and went to bed? Let's take a quick look at the timeline just to finish off. So this is all we know for certain. Maddie came home roughly 10 minutes before Stefan arrived, and he had her to himself for nearly 2 hours. Jenn didn't get home till 10:21. She claims she sent them upstairs at 11. Maddie's phone went upstairs at nearly 11:20, and then 20 minutes later you have Maddie's phone being put on the charger and Jenn sending those texts upstairs. You also have the roommate hearing sounds in room 4 around the time that she got home. Does this fit with the possibility that Maddie came home, was already knocked out on her nighttime meds and didn't see Jenn? It could do, because we don't know who took Maddie's phone upstairs. But we do know Maddie's phone didn't take any steps around the time that Jenn got home. We know that Stefan claims to have been watching Sister Act with Maddie. And we know that Jenn's excuses for allowing Maddie upstairs to have sleepovers with Stefan was when they wanted to watch a movie together. There's a lot of things here to think about. But to me, that seems like the more plausible explanation. That he has used the excuse of watching a movie to lure Maddie upstairs to his room. He has perhaps over-medicated Maddie to make it easier for himself. Jenn has come home. Jenn has been once again concerned with Jenn. Had her pub sub, had her meds, went to bed. She doesn't want to admit to detectives that she was too damn selfish to go upstairs and say goodnight to her child. So instead, she makes up these 5, 6 different stories, none of which seem to fit together. So I'll leave it at that. There's a lot to think about, and this has been a very, very long video. So if you made it this far, thank you so much for sticking around and sticking with me. If you're new to my channel, please subscribe. Also, please hit the like button. That helps me get these videos out into the algorithm and seen by more people. And please leave a comment below. I'm really interested to see your thoughts on the things I've discussed in this video. Mainly, or particularly, do you believe that Jenn actually did see Maddie on Sunday night? Or do you think Jenn is just giving her fantasy story, trying to create the impression of being the good mother? Or do you think maybe I'm just way off base here, and sure, Jenn had all those conversations with Maddie? So thanks. I look forward to seeing your comments, and I'll catch you in the next one.